the heart of this nation, under skies so blue,
there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true.
From the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're diving deep into the heart of what we believe.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at some pretty significant statements from House Speaker Mike Johnson.
That's right. Specifically about this big, beautiful bill he's aiming to get to President Trump's desk.
And the deadline he mentioned is July 4th. So we're going to unpack that.
Yeah, our main source here is an article from townhall.com where Speaker Johnson kind of lays out his thinking and what's actually in this proposed bill.
Okay, so our mission really is to understand the key parts of this bill, at least as Speaker Johnson described them, and, why the push to get it done so quickly. So let's start with that timeline, July 4th. That feels very specific. Why the hurry?
Well, according to Speaker Johnson, the urgency is really about stopping what he called the largest tax increase in U.S. history.
Okay.
He's talking about how a bunch of tax laws, the ones from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, are set to expire at the end of this year.
Ah, right. Those included changes to income tax rates, corporate taxes, deductions, a lot of things.
Exactly. And the argument is, if Congress doesn't act, taxes automatically go up for, well, a lot of people.
So this bill is positioned as the solution, the way to prevent that hike.
Pretty much.
And Johnson also claims this bill checks all the boxes on Trump's campaign promises.
Yeah.
That's quite a statement. What specific tax promises did he mention?
He highlighted a few key ones, things like making sure there are no taxes on overtime.
Okay.
Also, no taxes on Social Security. And interestingly, no taxes on interest on car loans that are made in America.
Huh. Those are very specific pledges.
Yeah, and he presents them as direct proof. The bill aligns with what Trump promised voters.
He also made a point of saying, we've made all the math work so we can do that. Now, did the article give any clues how the math works? Or what economic thinking makes that possible?
The article itself didn't really go deep into the specifics of the calculations or the fiscal mechanisms. But him saying that suggests they have a plan, maybe through spending adjustments elsewhere, or perhaps they're banking on the tax policies themselves generating enough economic growth to offset the cost.
Right, this sort of growth pays for itself idea, maybe?
Could be. It wasn't spelled out, though.
Okay, interesting. Let's pivot then to Medicaid. That's another big piece Johnson talked about.
Yeah.
What's the House GOP's goal there, according to him?
So the main objective he described is finding savings in Medicaid, specifically by targeting, quote, waste, fraud, and abuse.
Okay, that's a common refrain.
It is. And Speaker Johnson was pretty direct about pushing back on what he called misreporting and hype from Democrats about supposed cuts to Medicaid.
Yeah, I think I saw that. And he mentioned ads and billboards being taken down because they were supposedly false.
Apparently so, yeah. Which really highlights how, contentious this whole area is. There's definitely a public debate happening.
For sure. So how does he define Medicaid's role then?
He frames it as a safety net, but a specific one.
Yeah.
For young pregnant mothers and the elderly and the disabled and vulnerable populations.
So focused.
Very. And then he goes on to name groups he thinks shouldn't be covered, or at least whose eligibility would change under these proposals.
And who did he name specifically?
He mentioned two groups: able-bodied young men without dependents and also illegal aliens.
Right.
His argument is that by removing these groups and tackling that waste and fraud, the system actually becomes, in his words, stronger for the Americans who need it.
So the logic is focus the resources on those specific vulnerable groups he mentioned earlier.
That seems to be the core justification, yes. Targeting the funds, essentially.
Okay. It does raise questions, though, doesn't it? Like how you define able-bodied in practice or the potential impacts of excluding those groups.
Absolutely. Those definitions and consequences are definitely part of the bigger picture here. They're not detailed in Johnson's comments as reported.
Understood. Okay, finally, let's look at the bigger economic picture Johnson painted. He called extending the Trump tax cuts critical for the economy. What positive effects does he expect?
Well, he used some strong language. He said he believes extending those cuts will be like jet fuel for the economy.
Jet fuel. Okay.
Yeah. And beyond just growth, he also thinks it sends a really important signal of stability to the markets, bond markets, stock markets, like a reassurance signal.
So it's about boosting confidence, calming nerves.
Exactly. Showing investors, showing the markets that things are stable, predictable.
It sounds like he views this bill as doing two main things then: delivering on political promises and being a major lever for economic growth and stability.
That's a good way to put it. He also stressed it shows Congress is on the job and is taking care of this potential tax cliff.
Projecting competence and action.
Precisely. Addressing that big expiring tax law issue before it hits at year end.
All right, so just to wrap up our look at Speaker Johnson's statements, this big, beautiful bill is designed to stop a big tax increase, fill some very specific Trump tax promises, and reshape Medicaid by cutting alleged waste and focusing eligibility.
While also aiming to give the economy a major boost and signal stability to the financial markets.
And he seems pretty confident about getting it passed and about its positive effects.
Yeah, the tone reported was definitely one of optimism and strong purpose behind this whole legislative push.
Okay, so this deep dive gives us a good outline of the bill's goals from Speaker Johnson's perspective. It really leaves us with a key question for you, the listener, to think about. When you consider all these pieces together, the tax changes, the Medicaid adjustments, what do you think the potential long-term impacts might be, both the intended ones and maybe some unintended consequences for the U.S. economy and for that social safety net?
Definitely a lot to consider there.
It certainly is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
In the heart of this nation, under skies so blue, there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true. From the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family.